Once again, Higurashi is deeply disturbing, to say the least. A lot of people have been questioning, how are we able to see gore like last week, which then the gore in this episode tops the gore from last week. But back like 10 episodes ago when Reina was going crazy with stabbing, that was blurred. Based on my understanding, Funimation actually got the uncensored releases versus every other episode they get the TV broadcast. For some reason they're able to get for this arc the uncensored, so that's the difference. For me, I was assuming maybe TV regulations had some weird loopholes that they got around, but no, it's just Funimation was able to grab the uncensored for whatever reason now versus before where they're just getting the TV broadcast. But goddamn, this was an episode and a half. I mean, the thing that I still really love about Higurashi is I can't look at this gore and say the gore's there just to be a visual flair. It actually does add a lot to this. We're seeing Rika, who a couple episodes ago was saying, I'll do 5 attempts. 5 more attempts and I'm ending my life. I'm done with this bullshit. I'm done suffering. I've suffered enough. And you're just thinking to yourself, yeah, so we're going to remain with the last chunk of the episodes. We're going to do 5 loops. And then within 2 episodes, those loops are gone. And the one that we end on is the most deeply disturbing, not only just for the visuals of ripping your organs and intestines out, but because Sadako was looking so monstrous. And then you switch from that to then seeing her not wanting to abandon this village. To me, I could not look at anyone with a straight face and say, oh, that was just there to be edgy. Because no, what that was supposed to do from last week to this episode, which half of it was just deeply disturbing, probably the most visually disturbing thing I've seen in anime in terms of graphic gore, it was there to show you that this girl Rika cannot leave this village, and if she has any doubts in her mind about it, bad things are gonna happen. And the fact that once she accepts that, you know what, I love this village, and she tells Sadako, and nothing bad seemingly happens, you don't have anything weird happen with Reina and KFC looking man. We don't have anything with missing the dance, things like that. Sure, the end of the episode does leave it open to interpretation that things could still go bad and she probably still will end up dead. But at the same time, things are massively different now that she's saying, I love this village, I love the people, and I'm not going to abandon my friends or this village. To me, what this episode just signified, especially when we compare to everyone who's been quote-unquote cursed up until this point. We've had, I mean, the show kind of starts off with Keiichi saying and kind of doubting in. He's looking into papers, he's seeing the dam project, right? He's very much doubting in the village, and then that in return gets him killed. And then obviously Rika and things like that. But still, it seems to me that once you start doubting in the village pushes back. And the target of that curse, so to speak, is most likely going to be that person. And the idea that every year someone is like sacrificed, I'm very curious what that portion is, because based on what we've seen up until this point, no one should have to die. No one really should have to die if they like the village, but maybe there's always someone who's doubting in it. But still, it's so deeply disturbing. Not only just, like, you can honestly censor this episode. If we were watching the censored episode, I would still say it was just as disturbing. Maybe I wouldn't be able to talk as much about the visual flair to it, but still, seeing someone who's been theorized for 12 weeks now, or I'd say at least 8 weeks, maybe a bit longer. I've had a lot of people saying, what if Sadako was the one behind this? I think after this episode, a lot of people are going to put money on that theory even more. But based on my understanding of the author and how much of a troll he is, and based on the amount of trolling I've already seen in this project, to me, that seemed like the most obvious answer. And I'm not sure, it could be, I'm kind of 50-50 on Sadako being the new manipulator, the one keeping Rika in this village, roping her back in after abandoning it. But still, I'm not sure if that's the case, because there could be more than meets the eye, and it seems like the most obvious answer. But then again, when you start the episode with her just close up on her face, then versus when she wakes up from her dream, and it's the same scene, you would say, well, that has to be guaranteed slam dunk. That's the culprit. That's the one who's going to be replacing Rika, things like that. But still, your mind questions, but there's always more than meets the eye. So even if that is the case, there's probably still something else underneath the hood. But the idea that the village seemingly traps them there, and that once you're in this village, there's probably no way out. I love that about Higurashi, because it feels like you're trapped. It feels like you're caged in. You're a caged in animal at a zoo wanting to be free, but once you do, a hunter's gonna snipe you from the distance. I love that about the show, and watching, obviously, it's disgustingly horrifying. I mean, I think this one was the most disturbing, not because of watching her be on painkillers and having such gruesome things happen. is because Sadako seemingly was the most normal out of anyone we've seen who's brutally killed her in this show. She was crying, she regretted it, she's saying, why can't you just trust in us? Why can't you just love this village? Why do you have to do this? You are literally the god reincarnated. All you need to do is ask for forgiveness. And I was actually expecting her not to be able to snap her fingers because that's the way she's been re-looping all this time. And based on what was happening, I was like, what's gonna occur here? Because I was honestly thinking that if Sadako was the master manipulator, that at the end she would snap her fingers for her or something. But then to see that she still had that little bit of ounce of life left, which does make sense based on how much she's been drugged up, but still, I love that they're really able to get you thinking and to see such peaceful days occur and reflecting on the good days, but then also understanding that there were those bad days, accepting your fate, knowing that you're probably going to end up dead and that's okay. It's like, is that the solution? Like, what is going on and what's the point of these loops? And I love that because this curse definitely is without a doubt relating to keeping people in this village. And once you start doubting in the village, that's when things go awry. But still, there is the question of the neck scratching. That's the one question I still have left, and I'm very curious if that's actually something inside their body or if it's something more mentally that maybe there's some magical shenanigans at place. I mean, if we can have a girl re-looping timelines, it's not surprising that there's other supernatural things. That's why when originally they introduced that sword concept, I saw some people questioning that it felt a little too supernatural for their liking, but I'm thinking, if you're re-looping timelines here, I mean, I think a sword killing people, it's acceptable if I'm going to be completely honest, but I loved it. I think this was probably one of the strongest visually directed episodes I've seen in terms of the first half. The red lighting and just the horror aesthetic. It wasn't even when you're looking at the gore that was the most frightening. The most frightening imagery to me was shots like these where she's just sitting so normally, looking down at her dying friend, and you can tell she's disappointed in her. That's what makes it terrifying, not the guts being ripped out and things like that. I think Higurashi has definitely done something that I really like. Rather than going super, super gory in the first half, which there is gore in the first half, don't get it mistaken, but in comparison to what we're seeing now, I'm glad that we've had this kind of build up to show that Higurashi is more than just these gruesome moments, because I know for a lot of people who watched what was called, I believe, the Questions arc, and then it was the Answers arc in the original, I guess it was a lot of gore, and then you kind of got the answers afterwards, and it seems like a lot of people who watched the original only watched the Questions arc based on what they thought Higurashi was, so I'm glad that we got the time to really flesh out these characters, because now seeing what's happening, you're wondering, is there ever going to be a peaceful solution? I really like that about this show. I think Higurashi definitely knows how to make it spooky, and I'm generally curious where those people are who originally watched the old Higurashi show, who literally just watched it for the gore, who came to my comment section saying that this show isn't gory enough, where they're at, because I've heard a lot of people say that this is Higurashi at its goriest, so I'm like, well, here you go. I mean, and the fact that they're not just simply using it as visual flair, they're actually using it to actually tell a story of a girl who's literally trapped in this hell-forsaken village that seemingly looks normal now. I mean, that's how you do horror, if I'm being completely honest. I'm loving it. I mean, this show's great, and I'm really excited to see where the final 8 episodes are going to go, if I'm remembering correctly. So let me know down below what you're feeling and how deeply disturbed you were while watching this horrifyingly gruesome episode. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like to show your support, and hit that subscribe button if you happen to be new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.